Welcome to New Tracks Modeling. New Tracks provides unique mentoring opportunities to enhance your modeling skills by connecting with talented modelers and manufacturers from around the globe who generously share their knowledge and artistic expertise. Build your confidence, refine modeling techniques, and share your projects with a supportive community of fellow modelers, all while enjoying the world's most rewarding hobby. Join us every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern on Zoom and YouTube for our free live program. Missed a program? No problem. Individual show segments are uploaded to YouTube for convenient on-demand viewing. Be sure to connect with the New Tracks community by joining the New Tracks Facebook page, where you can interact with other modelers and see what they are modeling. Visit our website at www.newtracksmodeling.com, where you'll find information about upcoming events and the latest issue of our monthly newsletter, Observations. And now, here is the host of New Tracks Modeling, Tom Farrell.
Good evening, and welcome to New Tracks Modeling. We're coming to you live on Zoom and YouTube, as we do every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, and we're glad that you're joining us this evening. Tonight's broadcast is part of a growing platform founded by Jim Kello, whose vision was to create a collaborative educational space where modelers, like yourselves, of all experience levels can come together to learn, share, and grow. And that mission lives through our strong mentorship community, where experienced hobbyists help others elevate their skills and confidence in model railroading. New Tracks Modeling extends beyond this live program. We're proud to support an active Facebook page, a dedicated website, and a initiative you'll learn more about in the show, the New Tracks Mentoring Scholarship Fund. Everything that we offer is free to participants, powered entirely by a team of passionate volunteers committed to enriching the model railroad hobby. Before we begin tonight's lineup, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Brennan's Model Railroading.
Tonight's New Tracks Modeling Meetup is sponsored by Brennan's Model Railroading. For over 25 years, Brennan's Model Railroading has been offering unique products focused on the O-scale market. Their flagship product, Brennan's Better Ballast, was an instant hit and continues to be the industry leader. The prototypical size and natural color blend of real crushed granite make it the choice for discerning modelers. Since then, Brennan's has developed a complementary line of natural ground cover materials. Brennan's also has craftsman kits that anyone can build. The complete photographically illustrated instructions assume you've never done this before, and explain in step-by-step detail how to create an outstanding model. The Frank Ellison Tribute series of kits are amazing additions to any layout. These kits take Frank Ellison's scratch-built iconic structures to a new level using modern methods and materials with Dennis Brennan's additional details and amazing instructions. See the complete line of products on the Brennan's Model Railroading website. Use the QR code to visit.
I want to thank Brennan's Model Railroading for sponsoring the show, and I encourage all our viewers on YouTube and on the Zoom channel to support Brennan. Take a look at what he has for sale on the website. He has a new kit coming out. Have a look at that. Now let's take a look at what's ahead on this evening's program. Take a look at the program. Phil, if you don't have, there we go. Okay. Now this evening, we have, I have to say, a really exciting program. We have the return of Tom Yorke, the legendary kit builder and Disney Imagineer, part 3 of his presentation. He had one last week on locomotives. This week he'll have a couple locomotives and then some rolling stock. We have a new presenter, Philip Pettit. Excuse my mispronunciation, Philip, if you're on. But he produces 3D printed ON30 equipment, and we want to welcome him as a new new feature on the show, new program. And then we also have the return of Matt Woods. Matt Woods is a world-class master modeler, and he's going to demonstrate how he makes plastic look like wood. I've seen that presentation. It is absolutely stunning, these photographs. It'll be one of the finest programs that I think you'll ever see on the show here. And then we have Bill Davis, Berkshire Valley Tellhouse Kit Build. This is a really attractive kit in O scale from Berkshire Valleys. Now, although we only have 4 presenters this evening, there's a good possibility the show will run till 9:30, so I hope you stay with us. Before we begin the show, though, and before we get rolling, I'd like to highlight our New Track Scholarship Program.
Are you a model railroader going to college in academic year 2025-26? If you are pursuing a STEAM degree, apply for the New Tracks Modeling Mentoring Scholarship. For the 2025-26 academic year, 3 $2,000 scholarships will be available. You can apply online at the QR code shown or on the New Tracks Modeling website. Model railroaders can support the New Tracks Modeling Mentoring Scholarship, the only national scholarships for model railroaders from a nonprofit organization. Donate online on Zephy. All donations are tax deductible.
Before we go to Tom Yorke, I'd like Bob Davidson to say a few words on the scholarship. If we could spot him, please.
Thank you, Tom. I'll be brief because we do have a full show tonight, but just give everyone just a little preview of what's happening. We have a week and a half left in the application window, which closes on June 1st. So please, we have a couple of folks that we know have written to us and expressed interest saying that they're going to be getting their applications in. So if you're listening, please follow through. Once June 1st rolls around, we have a subcommittee, which will review all of the applications and rank them. And then they'll be submitted to the board of directors, and the board of directors will make the awards for the scholarships. It's our intent to have that done by July 1st, and we will have an official presentation of the scholarship recipients for 2025-26 sometime at the beginning of July. Again, thanks to you, the viewers, those who have donated personally. Certainly thanks to all of our corporate sponsors, the businesses that have supported us, the other clubs. The Amherst Model Railroad Group was a platinum sponsor this past year. So you don't have to be a business. If your organization or your club can help us out with this scholarship, like the video said, we are the only national scholarship program that's totally voluntary, volunteer run, and we are a nonprofit, so all your donations are tax deductible. So please, if you can help us out, we'd appreciate that. We're already making plans for the 2026-27 scholarships, and we hope to be able to grant at least the 3 that we have for the past 2 years, and hopefully more. So good things coming, and we look forward to keeping everyone updated. Thanks again for all your support. Back to you, Tom.
Just a word on the donations. We're trying to figure out how to set up all of our platforms that do generate revenue to feed money into the scholarship program, because really we in essence aren't trying to make any money here, but we are trying to promote model railroading to the youth of America. Now, I want you to think about the numbers a moment. In any given week, we get approximately 400 views on these Zoom and YouTube shows. If everyone put in $10, if they went to our website, found the what's that QR code, made a $10 donation, that would cover 2 scholarships. If our upcoming magazine, which will be released June 1st, New Tracks Modeler has 8,000 subscribers. If we could get $10 off of that free magazine, think of we could not only increase the number of scholarships, but we could increase the amount of the scholarships. And $10 isn't going to hurt any of you out there. It just takes minutes to go onto our website, scan that QR code, or I'm the treasurer of the scholarship fund. My personal address is on that section of the website. Send a check and a stamp to me. It'll get deposited. And you could really make a difference. If you don't think the show's worth $10, come on.
Right.
So
And it's actually, Tom, it's actually easier than that. If you go to the website and you go to the donate page, all you do is click on the Zephy link. We use Zephy, which is a nonprofit platform. They don't charge us any fees, and you can do it in honor of someone or in memory of someone. So, 100% of the $10 that each of you can give will go directly to the scholarship.
So I encourage you guys, get the crowbar out, get that wallet out, and do that today for us. We want to see we're going to deplete our checking account for the scholarship of 3 $2,000 scholarships. We have to get ready for next year. Let's make next year really special. Perhaps we can increase the number of scholarships, and perhaps we can increase the amount of the scholarship, but we can't do it without your help. And $10 is not going to hurt anyone. So there you go. All right. So now I'm going to run one more video, and then we will begin the show. I'd like to run the MyBuild video, and then we'll have Mr. Thomas Yorke on. Yeah.
Don't miss the monthly New Tracks Modeling MyBuild event. MyBuild is where the modelers of New Tracks show what they have been building. See amazing modeling with some MyBuilds featuring specific topics for modeling. If you would like to have your models included in the MyBuild, please email your modeling photos to chriscourse@railrunner130@hotmail.com. If you are a first-time MyBuild participant, please include a photo of yourself.
And I believe Chris Course is on vacation, but if everyone wants to participate in an easy way on the New Tracks live show, the MyBuild is a great vehicle to do that. So now I'd like to begin the show with Thomas Yorke, who is really a legendary modeler within our hobby. There are a few people that are as well known as him. It's in the same breath as a John Allen, and Al Judy. He was a Disney Imagineer, and I've made no secret of my admiration of his modeling. And pleased to have him on for the third and final presentation, at least for a while. This one will be several locomotives and then the rolling stock. So with that great introduction, Mr. Yorke, it's your show.
Hopefully you can hear me.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's see. Wow. We can get started. Okay. Yeah. That one isn't G scale. That one's ON30. Yeah, that was a kit that I manufactured a number of years ago for a Mac switcher. And it fits the Bachmann trolley drive. Okay, now we get to the this was the second GN15 locomotive I've ever done. It was from Magic Trains, little 040, with a completely new plastic and cast resin body with all the components. The only thing I think I purchased was the steam dome, oh, and the sand dome, and the stack. Okay. Okay, those are typical cane cars. Those are resin castings made from my patterns. They're relatively simple to build. They're mostly resin castings, but they have some styrene on them. And they're just four-wheel, and they're chain links. Those are the undersides. Okay, those are two dump cars. The one on the left is totally scratch built and done from resin castings with a cardboard wrapper for the bin body. The frame is cast resin. The one on the right is rebuilt from an ON30 car that I manufactured many years ago. It was a double truck car, so an 8-wheel car, a little longer than this one. And I got the idea, well, I'll chop the frame, add sideboards on the top, and put 4 wheels on it.
Hey, Tom.
It
Tom
works
Farrell
so
here.
well.
Tell
Yes.
us how you achieved that finish, which looks pretty good to me on the left. How'd you do that?
Oh, it basically starts with brown paint, just spray brown. And then I will put several washes of brown and rust on it, acrylic, and let that float on and dry. And then I will put dry pigments on it. And then it uses, I forgot the name of it, but it's a dust for polishing antique furniture, which I use as a weathering dust, along with some natural dust.
When you say acrylic paint, are you using artist's acrylics?
I'm using Joanne Fabrics acrylic.
Oh, just the craft paint.
Bottles of, yeah.
And you said in washes. So what do you mix it to get a wash? Are you just using water, or what are you
Just
using?
using water.
Okay.
Yeah, mostly water.
I asked because everything on the rustic buff is usually rusty, and I'm always looking for ways to rust things. So thank you for that. Yeah.
And it takes about probably about 2 hours to do a car. So it isn't just a one coat process. You've got to work at it.
You go back and add the darks, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that is acrylic.
Okay. And do you spray, I think we had this discussion before. You spray dull coat in between some of these, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Just want everybody,
Otherwise it'll come off.
yeah, just
The
want
water
everybody
will
to
pick it up. Yeah.
understand that technique, that when you do this, you have to seal it or you get this muddy look. You have to dull coat them
Yeah.
in between colors. Yeah.
Okay, that's a heavy duty flat. It starts with a resin cast frame, which is a model of a welded steel frame. Those are ON30 trucks. I like the look of a larger truck. I don't like HO trucks. They look too tiny. They look toy-like. And I use this basic flat for every car I do, even the box cars. And it's a real wood deck. And the same rust, finish applies for this too. This is the car with a load. That's another heavy duty flat. It's the same frame, but I used evergreen what?
Styrene.
Yeah, styrene. What channel stock on the side frame to make it look like an I-beam, and then it's thin styrene for the deck, and then the trucks are mix and match. Another little flat. This one uses yard clippings for the stakes. Let's see. The boards on the right are plastic or styrene. And I'm just using, for the stake pockets, I'm just using channel stock, which would be welded on. That is a little car made from, it was a plastic pattern for the frame, and then it's cast in resin. And the journals are cast separately and added. And it's a plaster toolbox and a plaster tank. That's one of my favorite cars. That's made from an old boiler. One of the typical flat cars with, again, mix and match trucks. It follows basically a Russian prototype. A lot of my equipment is from Russia. Except for the couplers and the markings, it could pass for American. I mean, you wouldn't know the difference. And there's some really great reference available on the internet about Russian narrow gauge, which I encourage people to look up. But the tank fastenings are typical of Russia. This tank also is a copy of a Russian one. A lot of times when they fastened the tank in place, it was just plopped on, and they stuck whatever they could to keep it in place. So it was very sort of make do.
This one has an interesting paint job on it, the yellow. How did that come around? What did you start with?
It's basically, I believe that was a tester's spray can of yellow, flat yellow, and a little bit of acrylic rust around the edges, and then the balance of the rust is dry pigment.
Okay.
Two little four-wheel box cars. Those use the standard truck of mine, which is cast resin, and these cars are cast resin also. The one on the right was the initial one, and I did a second version, which is the one on the left. They're both pretty much from prototype. Now, sometimes I'll use HO wheels if they're large enough in diameter. Other times I'll use a Grant wheel and re-gauge it. And some of my equipment I will use, let's see, uh, an Atlas or Athearn standard O wheel, plastic, and take it off its axle and put a new plastic and brass axle on it and re-gauge it to ON30. And it gives a much nicer wheel. It's a much heftier wheel. But those are HO wheels. Okay, that little boxcar is the bigger double truck boxcar. The photo doesn't do much for the weathering. The photo really uh, picks out the black too much. Um, it's all resin.
Tell us how you did that peeling effect. What was the logic? Where'd you start and where'd you end up with?
It's basically, again, brown. And then I took rubber cement and hid some of the brown and sprayed it green. And then I went and weathered it using acrylics and dry pigment. And then the black is to shadow where it's peeling. It looks much better in person than it does in the photo.
The rubber cement technique is something that our friends in the military hobby use quite often.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, military hobby is very good reference.
Yeah. Fine scale modeler. Yeah.
And there's my flat car again with a wooden deck. The crane is completely scratch built from styrene, and including the winch and the little hook and all. The weight box on the back is a cube of styrene, or not styrene, styrofoam that has been covered with spackling paste and sanded, which was faster than building it from styrene. And the stuff that's on the deck, there's jacks. No, oh yeah, the pipe fits on both ends, but between the little metal things with holes in them, and those stick out. The wooden pads go on the ground, and then the jacks go up and support the metal pipe, which keeps it steady, and it'll swivel. This is a passenger car. This is a shortened version of Brazil's Perus Pirapora cement railway. It's about half the length. That was a 2-foot line. This is all resin. It is a little top heavy, so I have to be careful with it. It's going to have Talgo couplers fastened to the truck, so those aren't on yet. The steps are actually folded cardboard, again painted with the rust technique. That's one of the two little 4-wheel bogies. This one depicts a log car, and as I stated before, the pattern work was done in styrene and then molded and cast. The rooster is a piece of styrene wrapped with a styrene end and a pin put in, or a loop put in the end, and then it goes over the pin in the coupling. And there's a complete log car. Those wheels come from China, and they're fantastic HO wheels. But you can still get them, but we are warned not to send checks because they have a way of wandering. So I'd love to order more of them, but I don't dare. But they're really nice wheels.
So what'd you think, everyone? Do you have any questions for Thomas? I think the weathering is just outstanding.
Yeah, I wish I could do rust like you do, Tom. I know what you do is simple, and you use the washes and then the dry pigments, and I use dry pigments too, but I sure don't get the results you do.
Well, practice.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't born knowing that. It just you just learn it, I guess, over time. Just
Well, and I
like
think your images also give inspiration of what it should look like. Sometimes I'm trying to do it out of an image in my head, and that's not always the best way to go.
well, that's mostly the way I go, but like I said, a lot of the prototypes that I use are from Russia, Russian narrow gauge railroads. Uh, and I will have a boxcar clinic at the next narrow gauge convention in St. Louis that features a 20-foot wooden boxcar. Mine happens to be in 1/24th, but it can be in any scale, and it's from Russia. But if I didn't tell anybody, you wouldn't know it.
That's the first time that I can remember, in doing this for almost 60 years. I've never seen mixed trucks. I think it's a neat idea, but I've never, and when I did your PowerPoint, I didn't even notice that till you called it out.
No,
That's,
it's quite common.
yeah, I don't think some of you narrow gaugers out there, Bob Geldof, have you ever seen anything like that? I hadn't, yeah. Or
I
Greg.
haven't, Tom. No.
I thought that was really kind of neat, yeah. Interesting concept, yeah.
Yeah, well, when you look at a photograph, you really have to study everything about it.
Yeah, usually I don't miss anything, but you got me on that one. I'm like, SOB, look at that. Very, very interesting technique. Yeah. So,
I've actually seen that on standard gauge railroads.
yeah, when times are tough, probably on the old Penn Central.
I mean, Kaiser Steel.
Yeah,
I used to live about 3 miles away. Their trucks were like that.
mixing Bentendorf with Arch Bar and such, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's possible. Yeah. Those are different diameters too, the wheel sets. Which it sounds John Allen-ish.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you coming on this evening, Tom, and really think you do outstanding modeling in this three-part series, one on the structures, one on the locomotives, one on the rolling stock was really a treat for our viewers, and we hope we can have you on again. So
maybe, well, perhaps I could do one on weathering.
you certainly can. Just say the word. So appreciate it. Okay. Thank you, Tom. Phil, I didn't get a chance to talk to you, but Chris Course is actually on. If you could post his PowerPoint slides on the MyBuild, he could talk to the MyBuild program. Sorry to put you on the spot there, but my producer's so good he can do it in a heartbeat. Now, if we get Chris Course, we're in business. You know, the best laid plans.
I'm not seeing Chris. Hang on.
He texted me and said he was on. Well, maybe Greg, you're our substitute. Maybe you could go through this for us if you don't mind.
Okay, well, the upcoming MyBuild is going to be water, and this will cover anything that has to do with water, waterfronts, boats, bridges, etc. This will be on June 25th, and if you have anything you'd like to have shown on the MyBuild, get those photos to Chris at railrunner130@hotmail.com by May 21st. No, that can't be right. By June 21st, so that he can get them in time. And if you send a little description of what your photos are about, that helps if you end up not being on the show. Also, we're going to have the voting for the 25 and 26 special themes then, which some of them will probably be repeats from the past and some will be some new ones, and you get to come up with ideas for that. And then future in July will be a free-for-all.
Thank you for the on the spot. Well, next up we have a new fella, Philip. How do you say that last name so I don't screw it up?
It's Pettit. The French version that everybody uses is Pettit, but we're not French anymore, so it's Pettit.
Welcome to the show. I don't speak French, but I do speak German. So Philip has a company called Phil's Trains. He specializes in ON30, and this is 3D printed work. And prior to the show starting today, one of our avid participants had actually purchased purchased a boxcar and really liked it. So there's a lot of detail on there. So we're really anxious to see what you've got this evening, and we'll put up your PowerPoint, Phil, and you can just go through it.
So I started my business. It started slow. I bought a collection of stuff from a guy from an estate. A gentleman passed away and had no will, and so the state basically claimed all of his stuff. And this gentleman I met bought it all in one lot at an auction, and so he got a hold of me to buy the collection. And I was nervous putting up the money, but came to find out pretty quick that I did okay in reselling the stuff. So it kind of started the business. My first year I started selling on eBay, and it did pretty good, and good enough I needed a business license. So I started my business and named it simply, me, and then what I'm selling, trains. So Phil's Trains was born. And then I started running out of stuff to sell. So I was hoping that I could get some wholesale going. Well, it turns out you can only get a wholesale if you have an actual website. So that's where philstrains.com was developed from. So we just finally got the website up and running. And it's a slow start on that one, but
Hey, Phil, this is Tom Farrell.
yeah.
You're a relatively young guy. How'd you get into model railroading? Why don't you tell our viewers on Zoom and YouTube?
Just from being a young kid, had an interest, which was kind of interesting because my dad didn't have interest in trains or anything, but it was just something that I was born with. And so I got a train set when I was a little kid, and played with that as much as a young kid can do, and then kind of moved on from there to other things. And, you know, come middle school, I circled back around and met a friend that had a mutual interest at school. And so he got me into the actual model railroading. So, and what, you know, that's what my interest grew in that. So,
And was that HO?
that, yeah, that was HO scale, because that's what everybody, I feel like, starts with. At least it seems like that. So yeah, HO scale. And then through high school, I had started to put up a layout, but being a young kid, not having money or time, I ended up taking it back down and put all the track and all the locomotives and rail cars in boxes. Well, then I got married and had kids, and fast forward quite a few years, I was going through all that stuff, trying to determine what I wanted to keep, and a neighbor giving me a collection. So I was sorting through all of this, and my boys, I have a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old, they started showing interest. So like, oh, set up some track on the ground and started running trains. And my youngest is the one that it really sparked with him, and he's a whole train brain. He runs around with his hands going, acting like he's a steam train, and just, you know, that's continued to grow in him. And so what I did is I built a HO scale 4x8 layout, and just to help cultivate their interest and have, you know, finally have that layout for myself. So, you know, just kind of gone from there. And then starting with the business, you know, I've learned a whole lot in buying and selling, being able to in buying and selling, I've learned a whole lot, especially about narrow gauge, and that's where the love for narrow gauge kind of sparked, was from that.
Terrific. Well, let's see what you have this evening.
So, like I said earlier, we have our used lines. We sell those pretty much through eBay. And we do have some of our new products on eBay as well. But what you run into is eBay charges 15% commission. So that cuts out of our profit margins quite a bit to sell new on eBay. So on the website, philstrains.com, that's where our new sales are, and the 3D printed items as well. It's a new website. We haven't gotten a whole lot of stuff uploaded. We have lots more than what's on the website. So if someone felt that like they wanted to get something from me, reach out. There's more than likely I have it or can get it. You know, but more stuff will be getting uploaded on the website all the time. It's just as I get time. So this is the train business is about one of 4 things that I have going on. So, or 5 things that I have going on. So I give it as much attention as my wife will allow. And then, yeah, I started 3D printing stuff mostly because I like selling good quality kits for people to build. Well, I started running out of stuff to buy. Boulder Valley, those were really good kits, and they sell really well, but they're hard to come by. So I said, well, what if I make my own kits? And so I started researching 3D printing, and I tried filament printing, and it just didn't have very good quality. So I got into resin, got a resin printer and tried it, and struggled for a long time. I'm not saying I'm a perfect printer right now, but I can make something. So, but yeah, so right now I have 3 locomotives. They all utilize the Bachmann ON30, streetcar mechanism, because it's a low profile, self-contained mechanism. But I have a box cab, a center cab, and an end cab switcher. Freight cars right now. Oh, that's so I started with the end cab, and what I did was I made the chassis that goes onto the mechanism, or the mechanism goes into, and then kind of got that end cab switcher printing well, working well, and then I it's a modular design. So I moved that over to the center cab, cut the hoods down, modified the cab a little bit and the stacks, and then that bore or created the center cab. And then I did change the chassis for the box cab a little bit based on feedback from potential customers, and redesigned. But a lot of it, the components are the same components that were used in other models.
They look nice.
The box cab or the box car, that was quite a bit of a struggle to get it to print right. So, because 3D printing is not for the faint of heart. It takes some time to learn how to support your models, because it's not like a FDM print where it prints on the build plate and you're able to, it just works its way up. Resin wants to be up off the build plate and usually angled a different, one direction or the other, or a couple different, different compound angles. So it took me a while, and what I was able to, I got my the chassis printing really well, and so that created the flat car design, which then I was able to build on later. But I got this model printing pretty well, and the doors are positionable. You can I don't say that they're you can open and close them. You can slide them, but they kind of it's you're not. I don't have it designed to just open and close them all day long. You can usually put them someplace and set up your, like, say, if you wanted to have crates or something in them, you could set your crates or people in there. I had seen a line of cars, box cars, where they had different people riding the trains. And then I printed in supports into the roof of the car so that you could glue some hobby wood down for the roof walks. And then the ladder, I figured out that it was easier to print just the verticals of the ladder and then slide wire through printed holes in the ladders to make the rungs. But yeah, it worked out pretty good, and pretty happy with the way the model came out. So our flat car, we got it. All these models pretty much use the same flat car base, which then you glue your hobby wood to make the decking. Comes with stake pockets and stirrup steps and everything to hold your trucks and your couplers and everything. Right now we have a tank car, a gondola, the flat car itself, and then I have a log car with log bunks. So our hopper, that's another one it's a pretty complicated model and pretty difficult to get it to print. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so what I struggle with is getting the models to be absolutely perfect. Right now I've got it printing so that it looks like a hopper that's been in service for a few years, because it's got some dents and warps and things like that. But it's a pretty nice model. I added some air tanks and brake cylinders, some detail for the hopper doors on the bottom. But it's a work in progress. I'm pretty close to actually getting that one listed for sale on the website. So I started, my designs were all built for the Bachmann low arch bar trucks. That's so all the coupler heights are set for that. But what I was coming up against is each set of trucks would cost the customer probably $26. That's the MSRP on them to buy the trucks. So I thought, well, what can I wanted to try my hand at making a set of trucks that can go on the cars come with the cars. So was what I came up with. They're kind of, I've been told by somebody on Facebook, they're pretty crude, but they're a whole lot cheaper than Bachmann. So, I guess I'll keep making them and I'll tweak them as I go. But that's what I've come up with was go ahead.
Do the wheels come with the
Yeah.
model? And
yeah, these were the wheels that I have in here were just wheels that I had. I've got some Intermountain wheels coming on one of my stock orders. So I'll start putting Intermountain wheel sets. HO scale 36-inch, because I've been having a hard time finding like a 40-inch that would be more appropriately sized for the trucks. But the coupler height is still right with a 36-inch wheel, it's a 20-inch wheel instead of a 22-inch O scale wheel.
now obviously there isn't much assembly, but do you put the trucks and wheels on when you sell the car, or is that the customer's responsibility?
It's the customer's responsibility. I don't have the amount of time it would take me to produce, basically assemble the car, makes it like kind of cuts into, I just don't have that kind of time.
It's all right. I was just curious if they were ready to run or you had a little assembly is all.
Yeah, any assembly and 3D printing is not perfect, so there's some warpage or things, the way things print, or the pieces of the support structure, they're still left. So the end user has to clean the model and remove those imperfections, paint the model, install the trucks, install the couplers, and then like the box car has and the flat car have hobby wood that goes onto the model, so that the end user is responsible for putting all that on.
Do the couplers come with the car?
Soon. So on this stock order from my wholesaler, I'll be getting a set of, or they'll be coming. The cars will come in a pair, so you get 2 cars. It'll come with the trucks for the 2 cars and the couplers for the 2 cars. I'm still working on getting a good line on the little screws and hardware to attach the trucks, because there's not a lot of places around me that sell real small, intricate screws and stuff like that. So trying to find a good line on those.
Hey, Phil, you might want to think about Micro Fasteners. They're in Pennsylvania, but they have really good service, and they sell that kind of hardware.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm after, is to find, because I've been striking out with Amazon and everything. So
there, you got yourself a vendor potentially. Micro Fasteners. Yeah.
but yeah, that's kind of our product offerings. Well, our 3D printed, we have all kinds of stuff that we can sell. I do deal with all scales to try to help, especially local modelers around me out. We got all the Woodland Scenics lines of products, trying to grow the business. So we try to diversify so that we can be a little bit stronger.
So tell us
what kind of resin are you using?
So I use Elegoo. It's Elegoo ABS-like resin 3.0. So it's what I was given when I bought my printer. So it worked, because I told the guy I bought it from, who had some experience, I told him what I was printing, and so it was his recommendation, and it's worked well. It's pretty inexpensive. I just buy it off Amazon, and but it seems to produce a good model.
Mm-hmm.
So Phil, comments from another Phil.
Sure.
Bachmann is having a 25% off sale on their parts on Memorial Day weekend. I put a link to the code in the chat. So if anyone wants to buy one of those trolley mechanisms, get 25% off. I also put a link in. I bought some screws that work for the Bachmann trucks that have a wider head on them, and I put a link for that for Amazon. that'll fit on for the holding on the Bachmann trucks.
Yeah, because the Bachmann trucks come with them, but if you're using my trucks that come with the car, you'll have, that's the one. But I do plan to supply the hardware. I just haven't gotten a good line on it yet. So
yeah, like
Hey,
I said,
Phil, in that sale from Bachman, I saw that and I thought it said it did not include parts.
I thought it said parts on it. The ones I said the parts shop, I thought. Oh
No,
well.
I thought it said just the opposite, to tell you the truth.
I
Okay.
read the same thing, and it didn't say parts on it. It said
Ah.
their HO or whatever their big sale is, not
but
part.
Bachman does run a parts sale periodically. So
yeah, I thought it was the part sale.
Yeah, it's a little misleading. You got to read that. It says
Yeah.
everything but parts.
Because I was ready to order a couple trolley mechanisms and you can't do it.
Ah, that's too bad. I'm sorry then.
So about the trucks, you might want to check on San Juan trucks. I like them a lot. They're very detailed. The centers are plastic but have metal wheels on them, really nicely. Come with brake hardware, brake shoes, and all that stuff. Around $14 if you're doing something really nice. They're not as robust as Bachmann, but the Bachmann prices have gone right out of sight. They're up around on eBay. They're up around $20 or more now for a set of trucks, which to me is just nuts.
Yeah, I use San Juan also for my GN15.
yeah, my idea with the trucks was just to give something with the car that somebody could put right on there. But I do give the option to, you could buy, I will keep the option to buy it without the trucks, and then the customer can always put whatever they prefer on. I don't have a line on San Juan trucks wholesale, so I would just be selling them for what I'm buying them for, essentially.
Are there any other questions for Phil? Well, Phil, I want to thank you for being on the show. And if you have any new products coming out, I know you're refining some of the cars that you were demonstrating or that you showed tonight, but we'll welcome you back anytime.
Yeah, I've got, just since we put the PowerPoint together, I got a skeleton log car. I went ahead and posted that on pictures on the ON30 Facebook page. So skeleton log car. I've got a Caboose that I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but a little Caboose that I'm working on.
Yeah.
This here's the skeleton car.
It looks nice. Yeah.
So yeah, always developing and
That's
getting
terrific.
stuff listed. So
Well, this is the tradition of model railroading to support what we call college industries, these smaller businesses that aren't the Bachmans of the world. So we
right.
support that on New Tracks Modeling. And thank you for coming on. And I'm sure we'll have you on again.
Thank you very much. I appreciate helping me get the word out about what I'm doing and building, and makes a difference.
It sure does. Thank you very much. Okay, well, next up we have Matt Woods, but before we have Matt, we want to run the New Tracks Facebook video.
Does it seem like eternity waiting for the next Wednesday night and a New Tracks event? Now there is hope. The New Tracks Modeling Facebook page gets you into the New Tracks community 24/7. Post, respond, and converse with over 1,200 avid model railroaders on Facebook. Show your modeling, ask questions, and help others. Join now, it is free and easy. Use the link or QR code to open the Facebook page.
Well, next up we have Matt Woods, who has been on the show before. And those of you that are familiar with his modeling know that he is absolutely an artist and world-class modeler. And this evening he's going to demonstrate a technique on making plastic, styrene, look like wood. So Matt, thank you for joining us on New Tracks, and appreciate you taking the time to do this. This will be a very instructional video, folks.
Oh, good evening, everyone. I'm pleased to be here, and I want to thank Tom for inviting me. And yes, I'm going to talk about utilizing styrene to replicate wood and how I go about painting styrene, both in scratch building and with kits. So with no further ado, we'll get into it.
So who's running this? Is this you or Phil?
The next slide.
I guess
I am.
Oh, here, let's.
You want to do it, Matt?
I can.
Okay, go
Fine.
for it.
What?
Bear with me here a second.
Phil, if you, it's up to
Yeah,
you.
it might be easier if you want to do it. That's
run
fine.
it, Phil.
Well, as I was saying, I'm going to present some ideas on how I paint.
That's the
styrene.
last slide, I think. Let's get to the front slide.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah, just some various techniques and methods I use for painting styrene to resemble wood. Now, historically, I've done a lot of scratch building with wood and built a lot of wood structures. Structure building and painting and weathering are two of my kind of primary interest in the hobby. But I've recently, kind of for a modeling challenge and because I like the durability of styrene, decided to start experimenting with some styrene models. So you will see the results and kind of the process and techniques that I've employed to achieve those results. Okay, next. Okay, here's a model that I recently have been working on. This is a prototype-based structure that is entirely styrene. And, it's a model that, I've kind of pioneered some new ideas with, and even gone so far as to replicate tar paper or rolled roofing using styrene. And you can see, the various textures and tones that I've achieved with this, and we're going to hit on some different approaches to that. Okay, next. Here's an assortment of barns that I built entirely out of styrene. These are intended to inhabit my HO standard gauge layout. And I'm going to utilize them on various hillsides on my layout. The barn in the middle is an O scale barn, but the construction techniques and how I went about painting them are all the same. And like I said, these are almost entirely styrene. Okay, next. Here's just an example of kind of what I'm trying to replicate, a prototype barn that's definitely seen better days. This is in Ohio, and you can see the various gray tones and just the way the grain and texture of the wood becomes much more pronounced over time through weathering and aging. Okay, next. Here's another example of a styrene structure. This is a little passenger shelter that's based on an Ohio River and Western structure. And on this particular model, I approached it using a variety of washes, which I'm going to show you or describe how I do that. Okay, next. Here's another prototype inspiration. I like going around the countryside and finding these old barns that are becoming further and farther between. You don't see as many old barns as you once did, and most of them are in pretty bad shape. But this is what I like to try to replicate, really. And there's just a lot of different brown and gray tones, and the contrast of the rusted roof I find very modelgenic. Okay, next. Here's an example of a kit. This is a Walther's kit of a small flagstop station, and I used a variety of washes to achieve the kind of peeled paint effect and the various wood tones where the paint has peeled away. Okay, next. Here's another example of styrene scratch building. This is a little coal tipple that I built for my layout. This is entirely styrene. Well, I do have to admit that the corrugated metal is Wild West. Their corrugated roofing material, which is like a paper or almost a vellum type material. But just by texturing the styrene, and I use almost exclusively evergreen styrene, and integrating all the different materials, you can replicate wood very realistically. Okay, next. Next week. Okay. One more example of a prototype structure. And, I think one of the modeling challenges that a lot of modelers kind of struggle to achieve or replicate are these various tones and not really knowing how to go about it. And, I won't profess to have all the secrets or have it all figured out. For me, it's an ongoing experiment, and kind of the artistic challenge of trying different techniques, both in the brush techniques and the paint consistency and the order of the paint layers, all play into trying to achieve the final result. Okay, next.
Just a comment before you leave that. Check out the roofing variations. I mean, halfway through, the roofing changes from square to rounded roofing material. I've never seen that before.
And then back, yeah, that was pretty cool. I noticed the same thing.
Yeah, that's a slate roof there, and they must have run out of normal slates. I don't know, but that is an interesting thing that could be replicated. Okay, so here is my basic multi-step approach to trying to paint this styrene to resemble wood. First and foremost, particularly with scratch building, I think it's imperative that you create texture on the material. Trying to replicate wood with a smooth plastic texture is not going to work very well. So as part of the building process, I will try to impart texture into the styrene material. And this is also applicable to kits. So if you're building a commercial kit, before assembling it, you can texture the siding and using a variety of tools. And it's just imperative if you want to, particularly with dry brushing, if you want to get the right tonal variation, you need to have texture. Next thing is color choices. Wood comes in a variety of colors based on how long it's been exposed to the elements and the age of it. I use raw umber, various tans, grays, some black washes, and for peeled paint effects, barn red and an aged white. The layering is also critical, whether you're going from a dark base layer to lighter tones, or whether you start with a light tone and go to darker. Those are two different patterns that you can use with the ultimate result being similar, but I'll show you how I differentiate that. The next thing is the brush techniques. So dry brushing is an important technique that we use. use stippling and also very dilute washes of acrylic paint using a small brush to go board by board and layering these thin acrylic washes. Okay, next. Okay, here is an example where I've created texture. You know, this started off as evergreen scribed siding, and this is on an HO model. And by imparting this somewhat exaggerated texture, it gives you a lot more, I would say, surface variation to work with when laying down your various colors. Okay, next. Here's another example of how I went from the bare styrene, where the texture has been imparted into all the wooden surfaces, and the final result using a variety of washes and dry brushing to create a realistic.
Did
Yeah.
you texture the styrene bulk before you cut the parts out, or do you wait till you cut the parts out and then texture them?
Pretty much cut the parts out, the various wall pieces, and texture them as I go. And you can even, after assembling the building, as long as it's well braced, you can impart more texture. And I'll show the tools that I use for that. Okay, next. Here are some examples of the tools that I'll use for the texturing. A scratch pen, which you can get from Micromark, is just like a small wire brush that you can adjust the length of the wire bristles. And this gives you much more of a fine grain type texture. The second thing is just a hobby knife, the blade, running the blade parallel to the boards or the grain allows you to actually gouge and chip away at the styrene to create an exaggerated texture. And also you can use the razor saw. Like if you were to be making trim pieces or any kind of like trestle bents, anything that has more of a strip type nature to it, you can use the razor saw to at least create the basic wood grain. You know, you may want to do additional work with the knife and the scratch pen. Okay, next. So once you know, we have our texture down on all the parts that are intended to be wood. As you can see here, I've also replicated a like a rolled roofing material using styrene. So that you would not texture. In HO scale in particular, you wouldn't really even be able to see the paper texture. So I don't do anything with that. But as you can see on the right-hand photo, I have base coated the model with Rust-Oleum camouflage dark earth and begun the dry brushing process using Vallejo old wood. Okay, next. So, but my typical process, if I'm going using mainly dry brushing, will be to go from dark to light. Like I said, you know, I think that either order can work, but in general, for the dry brushing, I go from a dark base of the Rust-Oleum camouflage dark brown, which I use for almost everything, whether it's track. If I was painting and weathering a steam locomotive, I start with this dark brown base, and it creates you know, a lot of shadows, and it just is a good base to work from. As I've stated, wood comes in all different colors. So, you know, as we go from the dark base, we want to be trying to replicate these various tones. So, you know, it's a somewhat intuitive, but also formulaic in the process. And like I say, you know, anybody who professes to know exactly how to approach this is not, being completely honest, because every model is a little bit different, and you can get good results mixing and matching different orders of application and even, the sequence of colors. Okay, next. So here's that original building that I had just recently finished. This is the prototype. This is in a town called Magnolia, Ohio, and this was part of a mill complex. And behind the building is a old flour mill, the Magnolia flouring mill, that was built in the 1830s. And for some reason, this structure was built behind it. And this is along the Sandy and Beaver Canal. So it was a canal that led into the Ohio and Erie Canal system. And I just find this building very modelgenic. There's a lot of different textures, and the fact that they had put rolled roofing over the wood surface at some time in the past, but yet that rolled roofing has peeled off at this point. So, the contrast between the highly weathered wood and the peeled rolled roofing and the tile supports makes a very interesting model. Okay, next. Here's some detailed shots of that same building, just showing the color variations and nail holes. In the process of the texturing, I would try to replicate the nail holes. Now, with styrene, a pounce wheel, which is typically used on wood, does not really work. So if you want to go so far as to replicate nail holes, you need to get like a T-pen or some type of a pen in like a pen vise and go through and actually hand do the holes, which I did on that model that I built. Okay, next. And here is that model, as I said, going with the dark base or the dark brown base layer, the Rust-Oleum camouflage dark brown. And, this unifies all the different parts of the model. And, that becomes our foundation for dry brushing. And so we're going to go through a sequence of colors to get to the ultimate finish. Okay, next. So the main colors I'm using on particularly these barns that I recently did were Vallejo Old Wood, Vallejo Sky Gray, Vallejo White Gray, and a Burnt Red. And from my standpoint, I think the Vallejo paints are probably the best on the market right now. They seem to be the easiest to find, and they've definitely taken the place of the poly scale. You could get similar results using cheap craft paints, but the Vallejo pigments are a little better, or a lot better actually. And so that's what I've been gravitating to. You can also see on the left-hand picture a kind of unusual type of brush. This is a brush that's specifically designed for dry brushing that the company Army Painter, which is like a figure painting company from England, they market 3 different sizes of these dry brushing brushes. And I've used more of a straight brush in the past, but have recently been using these dry brush specific brushes, and I like them. So on the right-hand photo, we've done the first dry brushing with the Vallejo Old Wood. Okay, next. In this photo, I've gone and added the Sky Gray as a second layer, so going more from the kind of the raw wood, relatively new wood, to more of a gray tone using the Sky Gray. And you can see that the dark brown base highlights the grain in the texture, because with the dry brushing, that doesn't receive the color or the paint. Okay, next. Next, please. Next. Oh, okay. And these are two examples of, highly weathered wood using basically a three-step process of the dark brown base layer, which is equivalent to raw umber, and then the old wood dry brushing, followed by sky gray, ending with the white gray. So there's a whole range of tones, and each successive dry brush is done a little bit lighter than the preceding layer. So as I go through the various tones, I'm not going as heavily and skipping around a little bit more. But I think this is a good representation in a relatively simple and easy way of replicating heavily weathered silvered type wood. And I really like the contrast of the rusted metal with the heavy weathered wood. Okay, next. So this just illustrates the sequence or the paints that we use again. Okay, next. Next. Okay, once again, we've achieved that base layer of the weathered wood, and now going to the red or the peeled paint effect, I'm using the Vallejo burnt red, but more in a kind of a stippling type fashion, just skipping around from individual board to individual board. And you can use a smaller type of brush for this. The dry brushing brushes can be used, but you get a little bit more control using a smaller brush. And, it's just very, looking at prototype photos and, kind of trying to replicate what you commonly see in these weathered old barns. Okay, next. And here's that little coal tipple going through that same process of the bare styrene to the base layer to the grays and old wood tones to the finished model. Okay, next. And here's the sequential photos with that old mill building. This was a kind of a fun, interesting build, and it was easier to replicate the novelty siding with styrene than it would have been with wood. But I may in a future time go and try to replicate this same building using wood. But everything on here, regardless of what the original or real material is, was replicated with styrene.
Steve Shirley, I have a question for you.
Yes.
We tend to weather equally on all sides. Do you ever put any effect of directional weathering, the weather, and the effects on if you have a predominant east wind or something like that? How that affects your model?
Yeah, I've tried to do that on some models. Like one side, all the paint would be absent, and maybe the side going that was more protected or underneath the overhangs of the roof. You definitely want to maybe have more of the original paint still there. So yeah, that's a definite I think objective in trying to make the model more realistic and replicate what you see in the real world.
Also, I use a wire wheel on a rotary tool. It's quicker.
Yeah, that would speed things up. I was a little bit glutton for punishment, going through and, doing this laboriously with the hobby knife. Each one of those boards, I had to gouge out with the hobby knife, and you always go back and keep revisiting it and finding out that you missed some spots, and the surface definitely takes the paint much better if you have the texture. So I thought that was pretty critical, particularly in this model. This is O scale, by the way.
Now, do you use anything like goof off or anything like that to run the colors together?
With the washes, I will, you're just using highly diluted paint, and you get some of that blending, wet on wet type blending. But I haven't tried any other thing to make it more dilute or anything like that.
Well, you do an excellent job. Excellent.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Okay, next. Okay, I also mentioned that there's a light to dark approach. And on this particular model, I start off with this barostyrene model and used a Rust-Oleum camouflage khaki to get the base layer and build up the different wood tones with a series of washes. So I'll kind of demonstrate how I did that. Okay, next. So here's that model finished. And you can see that, there's a lot of different tonal variation, and, it essentially, in many ways, looks similar to how the dry brushed approach does, but this was all done with very thin acrylic washes. And, for those who are not familiar with the idea of a wash, all it is diluting the acrylic paint with water. And you can make it as thin or as thick as you want. And the thinner the paint, the more transparency that you're going to get with each layer. So when you're trying to create those subtle tonal variations in the wood, having very thin paint is advantageous and gives you better results. A thick paint has no real transparency to it. So you can't really see underlying layers or different colors with the thicker paint. So going very dilute, not so watery that you're not putting any color down, but you want it thick enough that there's some surface tension there, but at the same time you want to retain that transparency. Okay, next. Here's an example using an old Revell garage kit. I picked this up at a train show. And, this is kind of just an exercise in painting, but I wanted to see, what I could do with these various washes. And you can see the initial layers with the grays and the tans. And then I followed that up with the very dilute white to get that kind of faded peeled paint effect.
Well, I like that roof.
Yeah, that was done to resemble that slate, yeah, the slate type roof. And Vallejo, they make an infinite number of colors, and I found that slate has very much a greenish tone to it. So using a green gray as kind of a base layer, and then slate also, at least in my part of the country, has kind of a pinkish or almost orangish color to it. So kind of combining the green gray and in this instance, I think I used Vallejo dark earth for the kind of pinky earth color. But yeah, I've been playing around with these slate roofs also.
Is this HO or O?
This is HO.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a Revell plastic styrene kit that has been around for probably 60 years at least. Okay, next. Now here's an example of using a sequence of washes on an old MDC combine. And this was another just painting exercise. And by using a very thin, small brush, I was able to go board by board and create this variation from board to board with the wood tones and to get the peeled paint effect. So this was all done with washes and a small brush, going from kind of a base raw wood look to your gray tones to the peeled red or mineral red type look. Okay, next. Here's that original passenger shelter using this light to dark approach. And that was all just done with washes, but you can see the texture that was imparted into the styrene to begin with, including the nail holes. And this is on my little micro layout, 0-30 micro layout that I built. Okay, next. So just to kind of reemphasize, your base layer kind of unifies your materials, whether you go dark to light or light to dark. And then from there, you have the option of dry brushing these various wood tones using the Vallejo colors or using thin washes. And, with all of this, experimenting and practice are essential. Getting some old kits or, train show rejects that you pick up and just practicing, priming them with either the dark or the light, and then practicing the sequence of laying down the different colors and seeing what kinds of results and effects you can get. Okay, next. And as Steve suggested, having variations from one side of the building to the other, depending on what direction they face and so forth, will make the building more realistic, and varying your weathering according to whether there's overhangs or even a windowsill. You're going to have some protection of the paint underneath that windowsill. So, whether it's a roof overhang, a windowsill, or, whether you're going into the prevailing wind or whatever, that's going to dictate some variability in your weathering. And, as I also emphasized, practice, 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 go out, take photos, look at prototype buildings. I'm very much into rural modeling, and I live in a rural area. So, I'm constantly on the lookout for examples of weathering, and it's almost like a safari, going out there every day and just seeing what kinds of new examples of weathering I might discover. But the more pictures you take, and take pictures of your work as you go also, to kind of compare your results and match them. You see things in photos that you don't see with the naked eye. Okay, next. Here's an example. I have this old barn door in my my studio, or my gallery, where I do a lot of my modeling, and I use this as kind of just inspiration. It's also kind of a neat thing to have, but I bought this barn door, and I have a constant reminder of what weathered barn wood looks like. Okay, next. I know I've gone over this again, but our dry brush coloring sequence, camouflage dark brown, the Vallejo old wood. Vallejo makes a variety of wood tones, but the old wood has more of a darker coloration, a little bit more of a gray. So I like to start with that, and then they make all kinds of different gray tones. Also, the sky gray is a fairly light gray, which I think works well, and then the white gray is even lighter. So it's a almost almost white, but it does have some gray tone. And then, barns were typically red, some were white. So using a burnt red or kind of a mineral red or an aged white can allow us to do that peeled paint effect. Okay, next. Next. Okay. Here's just the paints, and these are these brushes again. Army Painter makes them. You can get a set of 3 for like $20. And the figure painters seem to really like these things. I've traditionally used cheap synthetic straight brushes or flat brushes. They seem to always, kind of wear out on me. I don't get that many uses out of them. So these brushes, the dry brushes, I think I get a little bit more durability out of these. Okay, next. Another example, this is where you got the paint or the red paint protected on the overhang. And, the door seems to have been protected probably by the door track. But just, all that different tonal variation. And, I think, and I've done this in the past, you could use black as a base layer also. You're not necessarily limited to the dark brown. I think black would work almost equally as well as a priming base layer. Because if you look at that wood siding, there's a lot of black tones in there too. And you could easily layer up the gray and end up with a similar final effect. Okay, next. And here I'm giving kind of the sequence with the washes. It's you're going from the light to the dark, with the washes, building up the color very gradually and achieving that transparency from layer to layer is important. And that would be harder to do with a dark base layer. So I think for the washes, it works better to go from light to dark. And you can use the dry brushing and the washing together. After you've done the washes, going in and hitting some of the high spots with dry brushing would give some additional color variation and hit some of the details with a light dry brushing color.
So Matt, are you doing dull coating between your wash layers or just doing the wash layers on top of each other?
I just do them one after another, and then I will use a Krylon matte varnish at the end to just kind of seal everything. And I always find that, whether it's dull coat or the Krylon or even Tamiya makes a flat or matte fixative, it seems to blend the paint and kind of improve the appearance of it. So it's not only making it more durable and protecting it, but it seems to improve the look. And I also find that to be true, like with pan pastels or weathering powders. It won't make them completely disappear if you just mist it on pretty lightly. But in the past, I have done using hairspray. You know, if I'm using different layers of weathering, fixing it with hairspray, a light mist on each layer, and that does seem to work pretty well. Okay, next. Here's another great example of a weathered barn.
That's an impressive photograph, by the way.
Well, I can't take credit for this one. This is a stock photo on this one, but that's the type of thing that I definitely look for in the fall. Okay, next. And here's those examples of brushes. You know, we got the dry brushes, the flat brush that I've typically used, and then the thinner round brush for doing the washes on individual boards. Okay, next. So just emphasizing the different brush techniques. You know, it takes time to get good control. You know, with dry brushing, you want to just get the very tip of the bristles into the paint and then remove almost all the color. They actually make a pad that has texture to it that you can use to kind of check yourself and find out how much paint you have on the brush. But, you know, just using regular typing paper or paper towel essentially will give you the same information. But, you know, brush size is important. If you want to go board by board with the washes, you definitely have to use a thin, narrow brush. Okay, next. And here's that model again. I built a diorama. Yeah, this was probably one of the most prototype-based models I've ever done as far as hitting every detail. I mean, just trying to replicate all the clutter that was underneath the building and you know how those tile supports had cracked and so forth, and then there's this little outlet from the mill that goes into the old canal, and I replicated that there. So I'm pretty happy with this model, but that kind of wraps up what I have for you today.
Matt, it's Greg Cassidy. I have a question about your washes. Do you add any soap or flow aid in order to avoid surface tension?
I have not done that.
Okay.
I understand that, you know, that could be a value. I find that just tap water seems to be adequate, but
as long as it's thin enough.
Yeah, you know, you're just using small amounts of paint with varying amounts of water, and you know, I'll mix it right on like a piece of paper. You know, it's not like I have a wet palette or any special palette or anything. It's just mixing some paint on a paper and just applying it to the model. You know, and you have to keep redoing it. You know, mixing. You know, more wash and the different color washes. But you know, the flow aid. You know, that could be useful.
Hey, Matt,
Yes.
I know sometimes when I use washes, especially on materials such as plastic, styrene, especially wood, I tend to get some warpage. As a result of that, do you prefer to build the model first and primarily and then paint? Or do you think it's a better method to paint each individual piece and then assemble the model?
If I'm scratch building with wood in particular, I will build the whole model and brace it heavily before I start doing anything with color. Typically with wood, I use Micromark Age It Easy as my gray stain for all the wood components. And you know, pieces like trim and so forth. You can paint or stain those ahead of time, but sidewalls, where you're using milled wood siding, I'll build the whole model. And I do a lot of board by board stuff too with wood. So in that instance, I will stain the individual boards before applying them to like a mat board, substructure or a styrene substructure. Now, one of the reasons I went into using styrene more recently is because I was kind of getting tired of some of my older structures. The roofs, the overhangs were getting a little bit bent or warped, and I wanted something more stable and durable. So I, started playing around with the styrene more. But with I never like build a whole side of a building and then, paint it and then assemble that. I usually build the building with raw wood if it's a kit, and then brace it heavily and then stain it with the Micromark Age It Easy, and then start doing dry brushing with acrylic paints.
All right, gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions for Matt? Well, as our founder, Jim Kello, used to say, if you didn't learn something from Matt's presentation this evening, you weren't listening. That was absolutely excellent, Matt. The everything about it, the photographs, the modeling, your explanations. I'm so pleased you came on the show this evening, and I appreciate you sharing your techniques. Wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Tom, and I'll be happy to come back anytime.
Thank you very much. Well, next up, we've got Bill Davis. He's going to build the Berkshire Valley Tellhouse Kit build. But before he comes on, I'm going to preview the New Tracks Modeler magazine, which is coming out. Can you guys see that? Oop, didn't want to do that. Everybody?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So that's the cover. That's featuring Len Eberwine's Coal Tower. And the content so far is familiar from the newsletter, the Conductor's Corner, something on the New Tracks Modeling Scholarship. And I want that donation this evening. $10 won't hurt you. Our founder, he has a nice little observation article in there. And then we have from our viewers, we have myself, a new fella, Nicholas Callis. Phil, of course, our producer, has a nice article in there, and Earl Hackett. There will be a couple others. But the magazine is progressing well. Any luck? Something from Jim Kello on augmented reality and model railroading. Something on building this depot that everybody seems to like of mine. This is Phil's article on his just prototype depot he featured in a 4-part series about a month ago. This is that new structure from Brennan's Model Railroading, his Garfield substation. If you're in O-scale, look for that plan release this summer. Our very own producer, one of our producers, Earl Hackett, did a nice article on scratch building turnouts switches. Little ad on our website. Well, and this is all under construction. Here is another ad featuring our Greg Cassidy. I just really love this building. It's my kind of building. Wrecked. Terrific job. A little thing from the East Broad Top. This is a regular feature in the Observations newsletter, and will continue in the New Tracks Modeler magazine from Gene Tucker. Some photos there, and then advertisements. So it's going to be a neat neat magazine, and it's all free, no charge to our participants. I only ask you to make a contribution to the scholarship fund. Get your wallet out tonight. Sound like Jim, he was relentless. So next up, we've got Bill Davis, our final presentation, the Berkshire Valley Tellhouse kit build from our master model series. He's on. I didn't see him here, but hopefully he's here. Bill, are you there?
Unfortunately, I don't see him.
No, I didn't see him either. Well, I guess that'll keep us from going late tonight. Well, let's go to our show closing then. We traditionally close the show with Father Ron and then a caboose. And I know I saw Father Ron keeping us all honest. Father Ron?
Creator of the world, as modelers and makers, we recognize the beauty of our world. We thank you for the vision and artistry you have given us. Continue to bless us with your creative spirit. Amen.
Thank you, Father Ron. And speaking of master modelers, Father Ron is just a very good modeler, and it's about time I hit him up again. Maybe we can see some work of yours this summer with any luck.
Hopefully.
Terrific. I'm always putting the arm on master modelers, and you certainly are one. Well, now, Phil, let's do the New Tracks live donation video and then do the caboose.
Do you enjoy New Tracks modeling? You can help support New Tracks in many ways, but donating to support the show and other activities is really appreciated. This helps pay for the expenses of producing the show, including Zoom, website, and emailing costs. You can support New Tracks financially in 3 ways. First, you can make direct contributions through Patreon. With Patreon, you can make a single or monthly contribution to New Tracks. You can also contribute through YouTube by using super stickers and super chats to donate. Finally, when you watch a YouTube replay, letting the ads run will increase the payout to New Tracks. Thank you for supporting New Tracks modeling.
We have nominal expenses running the show. Perhaps I shouldn't have run that video because I'm expecting scholarship donations this evening. But enough about that. Thank you for joining us this evening, and this was absolutely a great show for me because we had 2 world-class modelers on here, Tom Yorke and Matt Woods, and it just doesn't get any better than their modeling. And I don't know what the word is, but there's a lot of pride in having people of that caliber on our show, and I hope you appreciate them taking the time to share their modeling and their skills. So let's end the show and let's see that caboose. Thank you again, all the participants and the Zoomers and the YouTubers. And I want to thank Phil Edholm, our producer, and Earl Hackett, who also is a producer. And we'll see you next week. Same time, same channel. Have a good evening.